Hello everybody and welcome to today's edition of Daf Yomi. Today's Daf is Bava Kamma, Daf 67 Omid B. Hope you're all doing splendidly from wherever you are. So just continue from the last Omid. Well, it says, from where is it derived that the owner's despair of recovering a stolen item does not cause the thief to acquire it, as is stated in the criticism of the Jewish people for bringing in free animals as offerings? And you have brought from that which is stolen, and the lame and the sick. Malachi 1:13. From the juxtaposition of these cases, it may be derived that a stolen animal is similar to a lame animal, just as a lame animal has no rectification at all with regard to its disqualification as an offering. So too, a stolen animal has no rectification for its disqualification. There is no difference whether one is dealing with a stolen animal before the owner's despair of recovering it, and there is no difference if it is after the owner's despair. In either case, it is disqualified. This shows that the owner's despair does not affect acquisition for the thief. Rava said, this halacha may be derived from here, a brighter. The verse, if his offering is a burnt offering of the herd, Leviticus 1:3, indicating that one's offering must be his offering, but not an animal stolen from another. When, in what circumstances is necessary to teach this halacha? If we say that it is dealing with a stolen animal that the robber consecrated and sacrificed before the owner's despair of recovery, why do I need a verse to teach this? It is obvious that it is disqualified, as one cannot even consecrate an animal that does not belong to him. Rather, it is not referring to one who seeks to consecrate and sacrifice a stolen animal after the owner's despair, and yet the Braita teaches that the animal cannot be consecrated by a theft. Conclude from the Braita that the owner's despair of recovering a stolen item does not cause the thief to acquire it, as if it belonged to him, he would be able to consecrate and sacrifice. The Gemara friends conclude from the Braita that it is so. The Gemara asks, but Rava was the one who said that this proof can be refuted, as the Braita can be interpreted as dealing with one who robbed another of an offering that was already consecrated. Rava apparently contradicts himself. The Gemara answers, if you would say that Rava retracted one of these two statements, and if you would say that Rav Papa, not Rava, said one of these two statements. So what's the note? Rav Papa Amara. Rav Papa said one of these statements. The Gemara suggests this because it was common for a disciple to cite the statements of his primary teacher without explicitly noting the attribution, as is widely recognized that his Torah knowledge was obtained from that teacher. See Yevamot 96b. It is possible that an unattributed statement made by Rav Papa was mistakenly attributed to his teacher Rava. And Gemara returns to the Mishnah which teaches, but the principle of fourfold or fivefold payment applies only to the theft of an ox or a sheep, as is stated, if a man steal an ox or a sheep, and slaughter it or sell it, he shall pay 5 oxen for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep. Exodus 21:37. The Gemara asks, but why is the fourfold or fivefold payment limited to oxen and sheep? Let us derive otherwise by a verbal analogy of the term ox in this context and the ox from a passage dealing with Shabbat. Neilaf shor shor mishabbat. The commentaries ask, how can this verbal analogy be suggested? The verse addressing a thief mentions both an ox and a sheep and distinguishes between them. Consequently, it is impossible that the term ox can be referring to all animals. One answer is that the Gemara is suggesting that one might have argued that ox and sheep should be interpreted as categories of animals. In other words, stealing not only an ox but any beast of burden would be subject to a fivefold payment. And the theft or other animals that are not used for work, like sheep, will be subject to a fourfold payment. That's the Pnei Yeshua, where it is stated, and the seventh day is Shabbat to the Lord your God. You shall not perform any labor, you, your son, and your daughter, and your slave, and your maidservant, and your ox, and your donkey, and all your animals, and the Gentile that is within your gates. In Deuteronomy 5:13. Just as there was about Shabbat, the halacha stated with regard to an ox is not limited to oxen, as domesticated animals and fowl are similar to oxen, in that they too are included in this prohibition, as the verse states, nor any of your animals. So too here, in the case of theft, one can say that undomesticated animals and fowl are similar to oxen, in that the fourfold and fivefold payment is incurred for their theft. Rava said the verse dealing with theft states ox and sheep twice. This repetition indicates that for an ox and a sheep, yes, there is a fourfold or fivefold payment, and for other items, no, there is no fourfold or fivefold payment. The Gemara says, with regard to Rava's assertion that one of the instances of ox and sheep is superfluous, which instance of the word ox and sheep is the superfluous one? If we say that the instance of ox and sheep at the end of the verse is superfluous due to the following consideration, that the merchant will write, if one steal an ox or a sheep and slaughter it or sell it, he shall pay 5 oxen for it and 4 sheep for it, without repeating the words ox and sheep. This is not possible. If the merchant one had written the verse like this, I would say that the theft that the thief is required to pay 9 animals, 5 oxen and 4 sheep, for each and every animal stolen. And if you would say that this interpretation is not possible, a suggestion is that the verse would have written for it twice, whereas if a payment of 9 animals were required for each stolen animal, the verse would have written for it only once. Then one mention of for it is superfluous, to teach that it is 5 for an ox and 4 for a sheep. The Gemara rejects this. That repetition of for it is required for another interpretation and cannot teach that it is 5 for an ox and 4 for a sheep. As is taught in the Braita, one might have thought that if one stole an expensive ox worth 100 dinars, he must pay for it with lean, inferior animals, negidin. Rashi maintains that nagad is Aramaic for the Hebrew gava, dying. It is also possible that it means pulling, i.e. animals cannot walk on their own, but must be pulled and dragged along. To counter this, the verse states for an ox and for the sheep, which indicates that the oxen and sheep used for payment must be similar to the stolen animal in quality, since one might have erred and understood that the thief is required to pay 9 animals, 5 oxen and 4 sheep, for each and every animal stolen. That suggested version of the verse is not a possibility. The words ox and sheep at the end of the verse could not have been omitted, so they are not superfluous. The Gemara suggests rather the words ox and sheep in the first part of the verse are superfluous due to the following consideration: that the merciful one write, if a man steal and slaughter it or sell it, he shall pay 5 oxen for the ox and 4 sheep for the sheep, without mentioning ox or sheep at the beginning of the verse. The Gemara objects, it is not possible for the verse to have been written this way, as if the merciful one had written it in this manner. I would say a thief is not required to pay the 4-fold or 5-fold payment unless he steals 2 animals, an ox and a sheep, and slaughters them both. The Gemara responds, one could not interpret the verse in this manner, as it is written, and slaughter it. The single pronoun it is referring to the slaughter of only 1 animal. The Gemara asks, but one could say that a thief is not required to pay a 4-fold or 5-fold payment unless he steals both of these animals, an ox and a sheep, and sells them both. The Gemara rejects this suggestion in a similar manner. This interpretation is also not possible, as it is written or sell it, which is referring to the sale of only 1 animal. The Gemara further asks, but one could say a different interpretation. I would say that a thief is not required to pay the 4-fold or 5-fold payment unless he steals 2 animals, an ox and a sheep, and slaughters one of them and sells the other one. The Gemara rejects this suggestion as well. This interpretation is impossible, as it is written, and slaughter it or sell it. The term or indicates that only one of these 2 actions results in paying the penalty. The Gemara asks, but still, had the verse been worded without mentioning an ox or sheep at the start, I would say a thief does not pay the 4-fold or 5-fold payment unless he steals 2 animals, an ox and a sheep, and slaughters one of them and leaves the other one, or sells one and leaves the other one. It is therefore impossible to omit the words ox and sheep in the beginning of the verse, which means that these words are not superfluous. The Gemara gives its final explanation of Rava's statement. Rather, ox at the end of the verse and sheep in the first part of the verse are superfluous due to the following consideration. Let the merciful one write, if a man steal an ox and slaughter it or sell it, he must pay 5 oxen for it, and 4 sheep for a sheep. Why do I need the word ox at the end of the verse and the word sheep in the first part of the verse? Conclude from this apparently superfluous word that for an ox and a sheep, yes, a thief is obligated to pay a 4-fold or 5-fold payment, but for stealing other items, no, he is not. The Mishnah teaches one who steals an item after a thief has already stolen it, i.e. one who steals a stolen item, does not pay the double payment to the thief or to the prior owner. Rather, he pays the principal amount alone. Rava says they taught this halacha only in a case where the second thief stole from the first thief before the owner's despair of recovering his item. But if the second thief stole it after the owner's despair, the first thief has acquired the stolen item for himself as a result of the owner's despair, and the second thief pays the double payment to the first thief, who at the time of the second thief was his legal owner. Rav Sheshet said, I say that when Rav was sleepy and lying down to rest, he said this halacha. He did not give it enough thought. This ruling is incorrect, as it is taught in a Braita that Rabbi Akiva said, for what reason did the Torah say that if a thief slaughtered or sold stolen oxen or sheep, he pays 4-fold or 5-fold payment? It's because by selling or slaughtering the animal, the thief becomes more deeply entrenched in sin. Nishtaresh b'chet. The thief becomes more deeply entrenched, nishtaresh, in sin. Most commentators follow Rashi's explanation that the term nishtarish is related to the word shoresh, meaning root. By slaughtering or selling the animal, the thief strikes roots, as it were, in the sin of theft, by making the animal even more unattainable to its owner. Others explain nishtarish as an Aramaic word meaning to achieve gain. By selling the stolen animal, the thief profits further from the theft. Rabbeinu Hananel. Rav Shesha analyzed Rabbi Akiva's statement. When did the sale of the stolen animal take place? If we say it occurred before the owner's despair of becoming his property, just finish this off in the next Amud, is it possible to say that there is any entrenchment in sin? The sale does not take effect, as it occurred before the owner despaired, which means that the thief did not in fact deepen his sin by selling the animal. Rather, it must be that the sale occurred after the owner's despair. If it enters your mind that the owner's despair causes the thief to acquire the animal, why does he pay the fourfold or fivefold payment? Since the animal belongs to him after the owner's despair, in effect he slaughters his own animal or sells his own animal. Thank you for listening and wish you a very good week. Shavua Tov and good luck. Bye.